If you're like me and you've been enjoying Season 10 of Infernal Chaos in Diablo 4, then you've been spending a lot of time here in the Infernal Hordes. Also, if you're like me, go ahead and ignore the fact that this is only a 6-wave horde, because they made a pretty major update to Infernal Hordes in the most recent patch, and you might be running out of your 10-wave horde keys, because I went and ran all of mine to collect data on whether or not the changes are actually impactful, so that you don't have to. Or at the very least, you can go to enjoy your keys as opposed to what I did, which was suffer through them. But what's the change that I'm talking about? The long and short is that spires in the Infernal Hordes were terrible, and the developers made 2 major changes to them to help them out. The first is just to increase the actual size of the spire's effect, meaning that more monsters are likely to be inside of it and count for completing the spire itself. Add on to that, monsters are now going to ambush you inside of the spire's range, whereas before they used to spawn on the outside and then they would have to run in. And the developers, after juicing the actual bonuses from spires walking into this season, believed that this was enough. But if you know me, just saying something is enough isn't enough, so we had to go get some empirical data. But I think for this to really make sense, we have to very quickly go over the history of the Hordes and how we got to here, so that we can actually break down whether or not these changes are worth your while. Before Season 10, there was basically one winning strategy in the Infernal Hordes, and they were called the Hellborn. You picked Hellborn everything. You picked more Hellborn, you picked Hellborn were more aggressive and gave you more Aether. Not only that, you would even pick things like Hellfire is going to drop Aether. Why? Because eventually you could get Hellfire is going to spawn Hellborn. Hellborn was the name of the game. Marsha! It was the only way to actually get a good amount of Aether, and again, before this season, while you could do other things, the majority of stuff was just weak in comparison. You could go with Aether Lords. Aether Lords were generally on par with Hellborn if you had a strong enough build to be able to kill them, and then to a minor degree, you could go with Aether Fiends. But there were 2 things you never did. 1, you never tried to buff masses because masses were crap, and 2, you absolutely stayed away from every single thing that said Soul Spires. But what is the major issue with the Soul Spire itself? Well, first and foremost, the Infernal Hordes are meant to be a horde survival game. Think like Vampire Survivors here. The idea is that you're constantly inundated with enemies, they're going to move towards you, and the idea is that you're eventually supposed to get strong enough to be able to one-shot them and move between objectives. Soul Spires kind of spit in the face of this generalized idea, because it makes you do the one thing that ARPG players hate doing the most, and that's waiting. Before this season, as long as you were inside of a Soul Spire, any monster that you killed counted towards its progression, even if they were outside of its range, which was really good because the vast majority of the time, people in Infernal Hordes are playing builds that can hit the entire screen and kill everything instantly. So if the monsters needed to be in the circle, that was just kind of a no-go. And even back then, before any of these changes in this season, Soul Spires were still bad. Walking into this season, they made a lot of different changes to Soul Spires. Some of the offerings for Soul Spires actually offer a multiplicative bonus, although hilariously enough, the only one that does is one that says that Soul Spires will spawn less often, but they did give large integer increases. So rather than only giving you like 2 or 3 Aether, they would give you 6 or even more. Then when you throw a multiplier on top of that, you get huge returns. There was one issue with how they implemented all this in the season though. They made it so that only monsters inside the radius of a Soul Spire count for its progression. That's right. It basically meant that if you were standing anywhere other than the exact opposite side of a Soul Spire, you would be constantly killing monsters before they could even get inside. Now, funnily enough, they actually added an entire boon that basically made Soul Spires work like they used to. This boon says that Soul Spires will periodically pull monsters into its area, including the player too. It's actually a kind of nice way to zip around the map, making it easier for you to kill monsters inside of it. And even here, it still sucked. So if Soul Spires generally aren't good, are generally slow, and don't spawn in these Aether events, then how good could they possibly be making them slightly bigger and making monsters spawn inside of them? Well, I set out to try to answer that very question. I had about 6 keys left over from all of the hordes that I've been doing over the season, trying to farm Chaos Uniques by killing Bartuk and opening up the chest at the end. And as opposed to taking these incredibly powerful options like Aether Lords are now 3x their value, I forced myself to always take whatever Soul Spire option became available to me. And I gotta be honest with you, The results did actually surprise me. I went out, I did like 5 runs, and over these runs, I started to get a better picture of what exactly would the outcome be, making this very bad decision. Because quite frankly, even in a normal run, you shouldn't only take a single things option, because very often you'll have a multitude of things that you can build on to make an overall average run. So what if you only take Soul Spires? Well, I think that run number 3 that I did out of a set of 6 probably paints the best picture of the worst best case scenario. I knew this run was going to be a really good data point because on wave 1 we start off with arguably the best thing we could have gotten. Soul Spires were going to grant +3 Aether. This means that when we completed a Soul Spire at base, it was going to be dropping 6 Aether in total. By the end of the first wave, we had 56 Aether, which is very slightly above average, and we had already completed 3 Soul Spires. Let's go ahead and just keep a count of total Soul Spires done over this run. For wave 2, we had 2 different options. Either the wave was going to start with Aetheric Masses, or the multiplier for Spires, which says that they are going to spawn less often. Now, what's funny enough about the Spires spawn less often is that you're often going to feel like they don't really spawn less often at all. I felt like that was some kind of Dr. Seuss tongue twister there. So basically, after clicking this one time, you expect to only see about 75% of the spires that you normally would. But I didn't think that this early into the waves, seeing less spires was a great idea. But by taking 2 etheric masses spawn at the start of a run, I'll eventually be able to take the etheric masses will spawn a spire on death. I could be starting off every single round with an immediate event, because killing 2 masses is a huge amount of progression, as well as potentially spawning 2 spires, and that seems like good return on investment. Now during that wave, we only spawned 2 spires, and we actually made less Aether than we did in wave 1. That's kind of the nature of Infernal Hordes. At first it's slow to start, and then as you add on your multipliers and your additive bonuses and you start getting more and more events and start killing quicker, you'll generally ramp up how much Aether you're able to generate. Now on wave 3, we got a very early addition to this, which is going to make the run significantly easier, and that is that Soul Spires are going to be pulling in enemies and you. The benefit here is that any enemies that you kill in the range of the Soul Spire will also drop Aether. Now at first I thought that you could mega juice this by basically waiting for enemies to be in the area and then killing them, but it seems like it's only monsters that die up to the finishing of the spire have a chance to drop. So even if you were to kill infinite monsters in there, you would only have a chance on the monsters that were required to kill so that the event would end. This often only gets you like 1 to 4 additional Aether, and it doesn't appear to be modified by any of the multipliers for Soul Spires. So I definitely think that this is one of the areas where they could actually further increase the value of Spires, but it's really good to get it this early. Now during this run, we got 4 additional Spires. That brings our total up to 9 at this point over 3 waves, which is not too bad, 3 on average. But I do want to point out the 2 realities that you tend to see in this run. I'm either immediately clearing a Soul Spire because everything kind of lined up properly, all the monsters spawned and everything got pulled in, or I'm still standing around and waiting for these Soul Spires to have enough monsters within range for me to kill. I don't feel like it's necessarily answering the question entirely, but maybe the rest of the run will paint a different picture. For wave 4, we actually don't get any spire related events, and you'll notice that I'm actually skipping the Chaos Rift entirely. Could this Chaos Rift have been goblins and I would have had multiple thousands of Aether? Absolutely. Does that really help us to paint a picture of whether or not spires are good for a run? Absolutely not. So you're going to see me skipping that quite often. Another 3 spires during this round is going to keep us at our average. And then we get the very boon that I was hoping to get when we first picked those Aetheric Masses. Now we have a chance for our masses to be able to spawn Soul Spires on death. This is a really great pickup because of 2 things. One, again, we have those Aetheric Masses spawning at the beginning of a run, giving us a chance to spawn 2 Soul Spires right off the rip. But also, anytime that an event would spawn a mass instead of a Soul Spire, it's basically like getting a 2-for-1. Not only do we get to kill the mass, but we also have a chance at immediately spawning another event, and that event being a Soul Spire. And hilariously enough, even though we have 3 Aetheric Masses right at the beginning, none of them spawned as Spires, but hey, I promise, we'll get better returns later on. Over that round, when all is said and done, we only got 2 Spires, so we're slightly reducing our average here, but we do get an interesting side grade for the next wave, which is that masses have a chance to reform on death. So not only will these masses have a chance to be able to trigger a Soul Spire when we kill them, but they may respawn, and on respawning, we get to kill them again, giving us another chance for another Soul Spire. And right off the bat from the 2 initial Aetheric Masses, killing both of them gives us 2 Soul Spires. The plan's really coming together here. And already we're seeing great returns. In that run alone, we already got 5 more Soul Spires to add to the total. And here, walking into Wave 7 is where I finally feel confident to be able to pick the Soul Spire multiplier. Soul Spires are going to spawn less often, but they're going to grant us 2.5 times more Aether. With the 2 Aetheric Masses at the start of the wave, both dying and immediately spawning Soul Spires, this is what we've been looking for. In that run again, we get 5 Soul Spires, all said and told. And walking into Wave 8, we don't actually have any really great options, but what we do have is something that won't minimize how often we're seeing Soul Spires even further. The Elite and Aether Fiend bonus here just says that sometimes Elite monsters spawn as Aether Fiends, and Aether Fiends are worth more than Elites are for progression, meaning that we're going to see more events more quickly. In that wave, we get another 5 Soul Spires. I'm starting to see a bit of a pattern here, which puts us just about 3.5 Soul Spires per wave done. Now, walking into Wave 9 is where things start to get a little bit hilarious, because we actually get the wave start will have 2 more Aetheric Masses. That means that all 4 Aether event zones will have a mass on spawn. The build that we're playing is able to kill all of them immediately while standing in the center. That gives us 4 opportunities to spawn Soul Spires, 4 opportunities for masses to respawn, and then 4 more opportunities for Soul Spires to spawn. And just at the buzzer beater, we're able to clear out our 5th final Spire for that wave, keeping our average. And what started off as a run where we were below average as early as Wave 2 as far as how much Aether we had picked up, we are walking into Wave 10 and we've already collected 1,000 Aether, while picking the best options possible for what is arguably the worst strategy for the Hordes. That's pretty impressive. And while I almost make a mistake here, we end up picking Aether Fiends have additional Aether. This again doesn't modify how often Soul Spires are going to come out. It doesn't modify the benefits of Soul Spires, but what it doesn't do is also minimize how many Spires we expect to see. And in what feels like some kind of cruel twist of irony just to minimize the impact of the choices that we've made, all 4 masses at the start of the wave failed to spawn Soul Spires and failed to respawn. It seemed like this was a bit of a kick in the you-know-whats. And like some kind of weird twist of fate or whatever else you want to call it, we finish off this last wave with another 5 Soul Spires completed, which puts us at 39 total Spires seen over a 10-wave run, making that an average of 3.9, or nearly 4 Spires per wave. We end up getting just over 1,200 Aether, and I would say that somewhere in the realm of 1,000 to 1,500 Aether is where I would like to see my runs typically end up, now that I'm on an endgame character that has really good clear. And the character that I was using for all of these runs is arguably the best Infernal Horde build, if not definitely the best Necromancer Infernal Horde build. It's a Bone Spirit build that shoots out Shattered Spirit bone splinters everywhere. I'll include a link to it down below if you want to check out my video, as well as a max roll guide written by Sirach. This thing's an absolute beast and has recently become our best pit pushing build. But what does this mean about Soul Spires? Why am I talking about max roll? Let's get back down to it. 1,200 Aether, while picking things that are arguably the most antithetical to the overall conceit of Infernal Hordes, is not bad. Like, if we're being honest with ourselves, that is not a bad run. And at first, I actually felt pretty bad about it, because when you look at everything that I put together, you kind of expect more, don't you? Like, the total list of boons I had for this, let me just look down at my list, was spawning 4 masses at the start of a wave spawn, masses can spawn spires, masses can respawn masses, spires pull in spires less often, which is our only multiplier of its effect, and spires drain. On top of that, I didn't take anything that would inhibit the masses or the spires from spawning more often, and anything else that I took was just generic Aether bonuses, along with taking the Burning Butcher, which is just a sweet plus 100 Aether on top of anything else that you're doing. I was playing on a fast build at 200% movement speed with Jaw Rune for teleport, and I was clearing out events just about as physically fast as possible. Sometimes the spires were still kind of lagging behind, monsters weren't spawning as aggressively as they needed to, and I was just killing them before they could even get pulled in, as well as the weird server tick rate for how often the pull happens I feel is still a little bit slow. But when you put that all together, and we go from a thing that was so bad you literally wouldn't click any of the options that had anything to do with it, to getting a 1,200 Aether run out of it, and even I myself had to realize that I was putting a bit of a bias on this. That's pretty good. Now, do I think that Soul Spires are somehow the best option available? No, I think it's strictly still Aether Fiends and Aether Lords, and it's kind of not even close. The only other thing that I actually think competes with that is actually picking all of the masses. But if you are literally stuck only ever clicking buttons that say Soul Spires are going to spawn and they're going to give you bonuses, it ends up being a decent enough run. Decent enough where I think that they are arguably in a good place. as far as the relative power of options that you have available, it's a winning strategy, or at least a consistently winning strategy. So for the Diablo 4 devs who I think watch my videos, I gotta say, pretty good job. I still think that there's a lot that can be done to make these better. I still think that Hordes in general suffer from an issue where monsters are just not aggressive enough. In Vampire Survivors, regardless of how far away you are and how far away the monsters spawn, they are always perpetually walking towards you, and in the Infernal Hordes, monsters quite literally can't see you. Their aggro range or their awareness range isn't large enough, and I feel like if that could be made to encompass the entirety of the arena, the overall experience of the Hordes would be much better, and oddly enough, some of the pain points with Soul Spires would have been alleviated. Now, I do understand that having different aggro and awareness logic for monsters inside and outside of one content is probably a bit of a coding nightmare, but I definitely feel like Infernal Hordes don't necessarily feel like the Horde experience that I have in other games in the genre itself. And I think that this change alone could make it feel significantly better. But outside of that, I've been having a great time with Hordes during this season. I think that it is a good gameplay loop. I like how kind of brain off it is, or how sweaty you can get with it, depending on how much you want to engage with it. And at the end of it, I do think that the rewards justify the time investment. Now, there is a little bit of the issue that Forgotten Souls say that they drop from the Hordes, and they quite literally just don't. So hopefully that's something that can be fixed in the next patch, but I know that the devs are already aware of that. All in all, I think that this was a good change. All in all, I think that depending on what your build is, you might actually have a significantly better time with the Spires in the Infernal Hordes, and I hope that this more like storytelling and hopefully more engaging version of a video caught your attention if you've bounced off my previous content. But there you go. Are Spires good? The answer is yeah. And if you like this video, consider subscribing to the channel, leave a like on it as well, and leave a comment down below. Have you found any really good winning strategies? Have you been messing around with the Hellborn, and do you think that they're actually worth it at this point? Because that was also changed in this patch. I just don't have any more keys to go test it. Let me know. Also, if you're coming across any comments, questions, concerns, ideas, weird bugs you're not seeing people talk about, or cool builds that you're hoping that somebody would cover, let me know as well. I'd love to hear from you. But that's enough of me yapping. Thank you so much for watching this video. I truly, truly hope that it helps, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.